And how we doing, everybody? Hello, good evening, good evening, good evening. Who do we got here in the chat to start things off? A lot of familiar faces here. How we doing, everybody? Welcome to another show. And hey, we're starting to pick it up a little bit. Hey, I was telling all of you, in the last week or so, hey, teams, they're kind of out of the office, right? You had Christmas break, or you had the Christmas holidays, you had New Year's and everything, Hanukkah as well. So yeah, that's kind of the time where these teams, they step away from the office. They tend to work more remote. And like I said, probably going to start seeing some more activity this week. And the rumor mill is picking up. And we have some news. Justin Verlander heading to the Giants, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to dive into that tonight. We're going to talk a little more Nolan and Arenado here tonight. We got the Mets in the news. We got the Yankees in the news. We got a whole bunch of stuff in the news here. I've had a little bit of espresso. I'm feeling pretty good. I think the potato brain might be at bay right now. But speaking of the bay, how about the San Francisco Giants signing Justin Verlander? Oh my goodness, how about that? I was curious about first off, the Giants. I was waiting to see what they were going to do. But I was also wondering, I'm like, where is Justin Verlander going to go? Where is Max Scherzer going to go, right? We saw the Charlie Morton news, with the Orioles. And then after the fact, I thought, interesting. I wonder if the Orioles were looking at Max Scherzer or Justin Verlander, and instead they went to Charlie Morton. So, it kind of made me, think a bit more. Where are these guys going to go? I was thinking maybe the Braves could have been an option, possibly. They have been in the news in the last couple of days. They're going to be looking for, or they are looking for, a guy that can start in the postseason. Say what you will about Verlander and Scherzer getting towards the end of their career. But hey, those guys have started a lot of postseason games. So I thought maybe the Braves, could be an option for someone like Verlander. Who knows? Maybe Scherzer could still be an option for the Atlanta Braves. We'll talk more about that. But, looking at it from the Giants' point of view here, I've seen a few of the jokes on Twitter. I saw someone post a video. Do I still have it up? I don't even know if it's still here. It made me laugh. It gave me a good chuckle, but it was all of these guys towards the end of their career. And, like, for example, Randy Johnson going to the Giants. Jared Carrabis posted that, and I was like, oh my goodness, that is literally what this is. Justin Verlander, who knows how much more time he has left. He says he wants to go until he's 45, I believe, was what he said. And, he's not even 42 yet. He's going to be 42 at the start of the season. But hey, for the Giants, they have been connected with Verlander before. Now, it is a new regime there. You got Buster Posey in charge. But, I'm not going to sit here and, do cartwheels thinking this is the best move ever. But, it's a move that I can respect on some parts. I do think Verlander, let's see what the shoulder's looking like this coming year. He did have some issues with it last year. I feel like, yes, you can look at the numbers from this past season, not great. ERA in the mid-fives, under 100 innings pitched. The strikeouts are down. This is a guy where it kind of reminds me of Curt Schilling. Back in 2007, Curt Schilling was basically hanging by a thread at that point for the Red Sox, and he had to kind of reinvent himself. I wonder if Verlander, you're going to see some different things from him this coming year. When it comes to the Giants, they've done pretty well with bringing guys in and, getting more out of them. Let's see if maybe Verlander can get himself on track here with San Francisco. But, in the end, I like the veteran presence. I was thinking Jack Flaherty would have been the guy for the Giants because they were in on Corbin Burns. So I figured, okay, fallback option, go to someone like Jack Flaherty, West Coast guy. We'll talk more about him in just a second. But you know what? Listen, I'm never going to hate the idea of a veteran guy. We can look at the numbers, we can look at the projections, the statistics, everything. At the end of the day, those are going to be really what matters. But, I also like the intangibles. I'm one of those people, right, where I can have a good appreciation for the numbers. But I also just like a guy that's been there, done that. And Verlander has been there a lot and done a lot of it. And I think he's going to be good for some of these guys like Kyle Harrison, even Jordan Hicks going to be in his second year in the rotation. Verlander, Robbie Ray, those two guys are as competitive as can be. I think Robbie Ray could end up getting a bit of a push from Verlander there. Even Logan Webb. I mean, these guys, they show up at the ballpark and they're ready to go. I think Verlander is going to be a nice fit intangible wise for the Giants. In the end, let's just see what ends up happening when it comes to the results. Now, with Verlander this past year, like I said, ERA in the mid-5s, FIP was close to a 5, but I'm going to not really count this past year. I mean, I look at it from the health. I just feel like when you have these guys that are so dialed into their routines, and when, things get thrown off because of injury, it's really hard to get yourself back on track. So let's see what a fresh start looks like for Verlander. Now, taking a look at Verlander, one thing that jumped off the page for me this year was the home run rate. 1.5 home runs per 9 this past year. So when I think of Oracle Park, I think of a nice spacious park. I wonder if that came into play here. I wonder if Verlander's thinking to himself, you know what? I'm getting towards the end of my career. I gave up some bombs last year. My velo is starting to get a bit down there. He's serving up the long ball this past year. Maybe he looks at San Francisco, he looks at Oracle Park, and he thinks, you know what? Let's see if the space can help me out a little bit, right? I wonder if that did come into play. But in the end, I think it's a fine move. Yeah, I know you're going to see a lot of the jokes. You're going to see, all the old man player jokes. Randy Johnson gave me a chuckle, like I said. But intangible wise, I like it. I'm a wait and see on the results. I am curious to see what the ballpark does for him. Now, actually, if I were to take a look here, let's go look at his career at San Francisco. We can actually go look at this on Fangraphs. If we go take a look here at the ballpark. Everyone, while I'm pulling this up, if you can help me out, go hit that like button for me. Subscribe if you are new. And we are trying to get to 50K by opening day. Where is the ballpark? I can't find the ballpark on here. My goodness, is the ballpark even on here? I don't know where parks. I'm looking for ballpark, and it says parks. All right, here we go. Oracle, where are we at? Where is, I'm not even seeing it. Wait, is it still called Oracle? Hold on. Didn't they changed the name of it, didn't they? Did they change the name? Hold on. What was the name of it now? Isn't it Oracle? Unless they didn't change it. Why isn't it popping up on here? Unless am I too far down the list? What is going on here? I'm having a rough time. Oracle Park is not showing up on here. I don't know what's going on. All right, whatever. Let's try this. Let's go to Baseball Reference. We can go there. Here we go. Let's take a look at his career splits. Let's go to the ballpark. Ballparks. I can't see with my microphone in front of me. My goodness. Here we go. Taking a look at the numbers. He's only started one game in San Francisco. Really? He's only pitched one game in his career in San Francisco. Am I reading that correctly? I think I'm reading that correctly. He's had one start in his career there. Interesting. Huh. Well, okay then. Wow, really? I'd figured he had a couple more. Wow. Okay. Well, all right then. Justin Verlander's had one game in San Francisco. So anyway, whatever. I got a little bit off track there, but in the end, I think it's fine. I kind of wanted the Giants to go a little further. I did want to see maybe someone like Jack Flaherty, maybe even Nick Pivetta, I thought would have been pretty good. Oh yeah, Sebastian. Yeah, the Pablo Sanchez, the three home run game. That's right. That's right. I'm only thinking regular season. I wasn't even thinking of the postseason. My goodness, I forgot all about that one. Yes, that's a good one to bring up there. But yeah, I kind of wanted the Giants to do a little bit more personally. I think even Nick Pivetta would have been a good option, a guy that's been a workhorse, a guy that has very good stuff. The advanced metrics definitely outweigh the surface numbers with him. I thought that would have been a pretty good fit. All right, but let's see. Again, I think they're looking for a veteran guy other than Logan Webb to really come in there and, not be a coach by any means, but, a guy that can, you know, sort of lead the staff in different ways. I think you can say Logan Webb is the leader of this staff, right? But Verlander, it's not going to hurt having a veteran presence like him at all. Now, when it comes to Jack Flaherty, right? Nick Pivetta, this is definitely going to start opening some stuff up for them, I think, right? Because, like I said, with the San Francisco Giants, they were a team that were connected with Jack Flaherty. There's a few teams connected with him, so now you can cross them off, all right? I wonder now with Flaherty, again, I keep looking at the West Coast thing, and, I keep wondering, I keep circling back here to the Angels. I don't think they're going to do it. I think it's more of a fun fit in the end, but I would love to see it. I really would. I would love to see the Angels go after a guy like this for the top of the rotation. He would be the opening day guy. Yusei Kikuchi would be the number 2. Could this possibly open up something for Verlander's old team, the Detroit Tigers, as well as Jack Flaherty's old team? They have been connected with him too. We've seen teams like the Chicago Cubs pop up for Flaherty. We'll see. But now that the Giants are off of that list, I would look out for Flaherty at this point. I do wonder if, because again, Flaherty at this point, depending on what the health is actually looking like, maybe there could be something there we don't know about. But I wonder at this point, the fact that they went with Verlander, who's almost 42 years old, over Flaherty, that makes me think, well, they must feel pretty confident about Verlander and his health moving forward. But then it's also, you're probably looking at the money aspect. Verlander it's going to be a 1-year, $15 million deal. Jack Flaherty, I wonder what he's looking for at this point. Is he looking for a 5-year deal, 4 years, maybe 3, and, some kind of options is what he's going to have to settle for at some point. But I wonder if the Giants were looking at Flaherty and they thought, we don't really want to spend that much. We'll just do the 1-year deal with Verlander. We'll circle back next offseason if we want some pitching. So, again, Pivetta, one other thing about him is he does have the qualifying offer attached to him. So, I think that's going to be interesting. What's going to happen with Flaherty and Pivetta? What is going to be the sticking point more? What's going to be more of a sticking point? Is Pivetta's qualifying offer going to hold teams back? Or will possibly the contract that Flaherty is looking for, combined with the question marks with his health, is that going to be more of something that holds teams back? It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Now, I see you in the chat, KMD, Nick Pivetta to the Braves. Now, there was one little rumor out there today. I mentioned it in the start of the show. The Braves have been extremely quiet this offseason, but according to The Athletic, they're looking for a starter good enough to make a postseason rotation. Well, if you are looking at both of Nick Pivetta and Jack Flaherty, well, Jack Flaherty did just make the World Series and help the Dodgers win a World Series. So that's definitely a guy, at least at this point, right? Hopefully he stays healthy moving forward. That, he's definitely a guy that can help out your rotation. Hey, Jim Bowden did predict Jack Flaherty to the Braves. Now, I know Jim Bowden, we all love Jim Bowden over here, right? But, he's, I'd say he's pretty hit or miss, more so on the miss when it comes to the predictions. I don't know if the Braves are going to spend that much money for Jack Flaherty. We'll see. Could they go after Nick Pivetta? I feel like at this point with the Braves, they probably don't want to be giving up draft picks. So I think you could make an argument for the Braves to maybe go after Flaherty. Maybe they do some kind of an interesting deal, right? Like maybe they do kind of like what some of these guys last offseason did, like Blake Snell with the opt-out. Could, maybe the Braves look at Jack Flaherty and say, hey, how about we do, a 3-year deal? We'll give you an opt-out. You can go back out into the market next year. or you can just sign back up with us. Because that's the one thing with Flaherty that I wonder if that would intrigue the Atlanta Braves. No draft pick compensation attached to him. So I think it'll be interesting. So look out for these guys up next, but also look out for Scherzer. What's going to happen here with Scherzer? Could Scherzer be an option for the Atlanta Braves? Again, looking for a guy that can pitch in the postseason. Scherzer, obviously, coming off, when you take a look at the numbers with Scherzer this past year, when he came back, he was looking all right. I mean, like when he came back initially, he was looking pretty good, and then he missed all of August. He came back for one more start in September. The numbers overall with Scherzer were pretty decent this year, definitely better than Verlander. So I wonder if Scherzer could be an option for the Atlanta Braves, for some of these other teams out there that are looking for some starting pitching, right? If I'm looking at some other teams when it comes to the starting pitching, let me see where I can pull this up here. If we're looking at current projections for starting pitching, of course, I just lost my page. There we go. So on Fangraphs here, they got the rankings, right? Yeah, the White Sox, probably not happening. Rockies, probably not happening. Oakland? I don't know. Would Scherzer go to Oakland? Would Pivetta or Flaherty go to, not Oakland, sorry, Sacramento. My goodness, I'm still getting used to it. I don't know, man. Like the Nationals could you even see someone like Scherzer go back to the Nationals, right? That veteran presence possibly. I don't know about the Orioles, really. Could the Angels maybe make a play for one of these guys? Like I mentioned with Flaherty, I would love to see that. The Blue Jays, they want everyone at this point. They want anyone that's willing to take their money. The Cubs, right? The Cubs have been attached to Jack Flaherty a little bit. Could they go after one of these guys? Possibly. We'll see. Padres, probably not going to be spending all that much money. Mets, no. Cardinals, no. Brewers, no. Reds, maybe for one of these guys. They did bring in Brady Singer, but you could move Nick Martinez to the bullpen. He has that flexibility. So I feel like the Reds could make a play at some point. Could they be maybe like a surprise team for Jack Flaherty or, someone like Max Scherzer? I could maybe see Nick Pivetta as well. They have a lot of prospects in their system. Let's see, would they be willing to give up a high draft pick? Astros, now, honestly, with the Astros now, I wondered at one point if Verlander could just go back to Houston. But, but just because they had the good relationship. Well, could they still be maybe, possibly in the market? Could you see someone like Scherzer go to Houston? I don't think they're going to give up a draft pick for Nick Pivetta. They need to rebuild that farm. So I don't know. Flaherty's probably out of their price range, but you got Luis Garcia coming back. You're gonna have Lance McCullers Jr. coming back, but there's gonna be a question mark when it comes to the health of those guys. So maybe Houston could be an option. The Tigers again. I mentioned them with Flaherty. Maybe if Flaherty's out of their price range. They do have a lot of young talent there. Maybe someone like Pivetta could be an option. Maybe they could bring back Max Scherzer. You got a lot of young guys here. Look for a veteran presence. Maybe Max Scherzer could be an option for the Detroit Tigers, possibly. Probably not the Diamondbacks. Mariners, no. Yankees, no. We'll talk about them in a little bit. Pirates, no. Twins, I don't know. Probably not the Twins. Maybe if they trade Pablo Lopez to cut some payroll, maybe they could cut like a smaller deal out there. I don't know. I don't see them bringing in someone like Flaherty. All right. So, you keep going up the list here. The Braves, sure, they do project well when it comes to the starting pitching, but I feel like they could use a guy, like I've mentioned. Could Scherzer be on something like a cheap deal? I could see Anthopoulos being interested in that. Pivetta again, but again, do the Braves want to give up draft picks? I don't know. I feel like they need to keep those draft picks at this point. Again, Flaherty, who knows? So it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening. But Verlander, hey, I kind of dove a bit into that there. I think the move is fine. I would have liked the Giants to make a better move overall. But let's see. Maybe it ends up being pretty good. Maybe the ballpark ends up helping him out there, cut down those home runs a little bit. We'll see. But everyone, let's move on to the next story. And we got a little Nolan Arenado. I am going to be going live over on Fenway Faithful after this show, probably right around in the next 30 minutes or so. So if you would like to hear me go more in depth on Nolan Arenado, and also Vlad Jr. Vlad Jr. was in the news today, but I'm actually going to hold off on that for Fenway Faithful tonight. That's definitely going to be more Red Sox oriented, so that'll be I'll be going live over there right after here tonight. But let's talk about Nolan Arenado, right? The Red Sox are seen as the last shot for Nolan Arenado when it comes to a landing spot, according to Katie Wu of The Athletic, who covers the Cardinals, right? She says here in her article, multiple league sources indicate that the Red Sox represent Arenado's last chance to get dealt before the 2025 season. Now, we've all known, coming into the offseason that the Cardinals are looking to cut some payroll. Arenado is making quite a bit of money, and the Cardinals are really looking ahead at this point. They have some young guys that are looking for some playing time. Arenado wants to go to a team where they feel like their main focus is going to be on competing for a World Series. And the Cardinals, who knows? Maybe they could catch some fire, some lightning in a bottle this year. They still do have some talented players there. Could they end up making a run of some sorts? Maybe. We'll see. You never know in the NL Central. But for Arenado, really at this point, and the Cardinals, both of them feel that, it's probably best he, tries to look for that opportunity elsewhere. But the Cardinals, really, they're looking at the next couple of years, right? Trying to, almost go through a bit of a bridge, right? Chaim Bloom's going to be taking over eventually as the president of baseball operations. They got some young guys, that are looking to develop more at the major league level. So, but when it comes to landing spots, we've heard different teams, right? He had that list at one point. The Angels were on it, but they got Anthony Rendon. They got to figure that out. The Yankees popped up at one point. I don't believe they were on the list, but the Yankees did pop up as a possible landing spot, especially after they traded for Paul Goldschmidt. Both those guys are very close. They've been teammates. I guess there was one report that the Yankees wanted to give up Marcus Stroman as like a contract swap, but the Cardinals were like, nah, we don't really want to take on any money. So the Yankees, I guess, moved on. Could they revisit talks at some point? Maybe. The Phillies popped up at one point. Alec Boehm, they've been trying to move him. They've been trying to get everyone like Shohei Ohtani and Paul Skeens for Alec Boehm. I'm kidding. That's not actually serious. They're just trying to get, they think Alec Boehm is, one of the top players in the game, and Dombrowski's been asking for the moon for that guy. So, but they haven't been able to move him. So I guess the Phillies, you could probably cross off at this point. The Mets, I guess the Mets could still be a possibility depending on what happens with Pete Alonso. But there was a report today that if the Mets, if Alonso is not brought back, there's a possibility they could be looking internally, giving Brett Beatty another chance at third base. You roll with Mark Vientos at first base. So, could maybe they pop up at some point. But, there's not really a lot of clear-cut options for Arenado. The Red Sox really represent, at this point, really the best landing spot for him. And, of course, yes, you got Rafael Devers. That's been the one talking point when it comes to Arenado and the Red Sox, right? Listen, yes, there have been some good things when it comes to Rafi's defense. He has made some pretty good plays, right? He did show some improvements this past year, but in the end, the numbers are the numbers, and that's what the front office is going to look at. Sure, maybe the guys that are, on the field, maybe they think about it a little differently, but the front office, they're going to be looking at their numbers, and they see the outs above average, they see the runs saved. Rafi does not really check off a lot of those boxes, right? Statistically, one of the worst third basemen in the game going back over the last few years. So the idea is you move Rafi over to first base. Yes, and DH has been an option as well, but I think it's going to be impossible to move Yoshida. I Red Sox fans, they don't want to hear that, but I just don't see teams willing to take on Yoshida at this point. They literally tried dumping him with Tristan Casas to the Mariners, and the Mariners said no. They literally couldn't even get the Mariners to take Yoshida, even with a young first baseman like Tristan Casas. That tells me all I need to know. I don't think Yoshida is going to get moved. So the idea is to put Rafi at first base. The defense hasn't been good statistically at third. First base is a low value position. Just put Rafi over there, have him learn, learn the intricacies of the position and, see how it goes, right? Now, a lot of people are opposed to that idea. I feel like personally, Rafi could handle first base. That's just me. But you would get improved defense at third base with Arenado, one of the greatest defenders at third base of all time. However, when it comes to Arenado, you would have to, in that situation, you would have to trade Tristan Casas. And there have been some reports here that Tristan Casas would have to get moved, right? And according to Chris Cotillo, he went on the Fenway Rundown today on the Red Sox. We'll talk more about that on Fenway Faithful, but he says the Red Sox are definitely listening when it comes to Tristan Casas trades. That is on the table, according to Chris Cotillo. It's been reported all offseason that he could be up for trade. A lot of Red Sox fans are opposed to that. I understand it. There's a high upside bat there. For me personally, with Casas, yes, he could end up being a 30 to a 40 home run guy. He is projected for 28 home runs this coming year. However, because of the low value position at first base, they are projecting him for a 2.5 FWAR. Now, he could definitely end up being more, maybe in the 3 range, I think. I think you could see that. Back in 2023, had himself a pretty solid season. Had 24 home runs, a 490 on the slugging, a 130 WRC plus. But because of the defense, defensively, he's had his issues at first base as well. And, his FWAR back in 23 was a 1.7. I think a lot of Red Sox fans, personally, I don't know. I don't want to say they overrate Tristan Casas. I think he could end up being a very good bat down the road. But I think when you're looking at it from a wins above replacement point of view, I think personally Arenado, I don't want to say it's a better move than Casas. Yes, Casas would bring you the better upside with the bat, but Arenado makes up for it with the defense. I think it's almost more of a lateral move. I think that might be the best way to say it. I think, yes, you want that upside, but you got to remember run prevention is half the battle. And Arenado is going to really make up for that on the, and Arenado's bat will probably end up being pretty decent at Fenway Park. So I think, honestly, it's more of just a lateral move. And then, with Casas, it depends on what you get back for him. Could you move him to see? Could you revisit those talks with the Mariners? Maybe bring in someone like Andres Munoz for the back end of the bullpen. Maybe Pittsburgh. The Red Sox, they could use some more catching, right? They did bring in Omar Narvaez. You got Connor Wong there, obviously. Maybe you could do something with like Henry Davis, first overall pick from a couple of years ago. Maybe you could do something like him with some pitching attached to him. I think there's deals that are possible out there. Maybe even the Twins, could be a possibility. I don't know what you do with Miranda at that point, but maybe you could do something with Yohan Duran. That could help cut some payroll for the Twins a little bit. I think there's moves out. Maybe the Mets, right? We'll talk about the Mets here in just a little bit. That is the next story. Depending on what happens with Pete Alonso, maybe the Mets could end up being an option. And even Andy Martino today covered that. We'll see what ends up happening. But if I were to, right now, I'm 50-50 on whether or not this happens. I do think in the end, with the Red Sox, I think this all ties back to Alex Bregman. I feel like this, in a way, is a bit of leverage to try and get Scott Boras to bring that price down a little bit. I do think the Red Sox would like to bring in Alex Bregman. Alex Cora has talked highly of him. It was reported that Sam Kennedy would love to have Arenado. However, there's people in the front office that are opposed to it. I think the Red Sox would be okay with it, but on a shorter deal. I think this all ties back to Alex Bregman, right? That's been a little quiet. I think the Red Sox, personally, if you were to ask me, my opinion, my guess as of right now, I think the Red Sox are trying to get that price down for Alex Bregman. They're saying to Boras here, hey, we like Arenado. We can just pivot to him. We would like Bregman, but you got to come down on the years. I guess there was something out there today that Bregman is looking for 7 years. The Red Sox could be looking for 4 to 5. I'm going blank on where that was today. I apologize. I'm going so blank on that. But I think the Red Sox are trying to bring Bregman's price down. Kind of reminds me of JD Martinez. Remember JD Martinez? That guy wanted $200 million back in 2018. $200 million. If you don't believe me, go look it up. The Red Sox, they held out. They got him for 5 years and $110 million. I wonder if the Red Sox are doing the same thing with Bregman and they're just using the Arenado talks to try and bring it down. We'll see what ends up happening, but it looks like right now the Red Sox are the last possible landing spot for Arenado. If he ends up staying with the Cardinals, well, you got to think with Arenado, man. This guy is I'm going to talk more about this on Fenway Faithful and why I think he would be a good fit, not just on the field, but off the field as well. I think Arenado, man, if he ends up staying with the Cardinals, this guy I think is going to be super motivated going into the year. He's going to go. I think, honestly, he's going to say, you know what? I'm still here. Let's make the best of this. Let's try and compete, right? I think Arenado will play his butt off to try and, to either obviously try and win or to set himself up for a trade at the deadline. That's what I think, right? And if he's having a really good first half, he could be very highly sought after at the deadline. So I think Arenado, I bet you we're going to see a good first half out of him. He was doing a little bit better in the second half. He made some adjustments. If you go look at the hard hit percentage, it was better in the second half. So let's see what ends up happening there. But I don't know. I'm 50-50 on whether or not this happens with the Red Sox right now. Moving on to the Mets. How about the Mets? We got some Mets news, ladies and gentlemen. We got some Mets news. How about Tanner Scott? Where are the Mets fans here in the chat? Tanner Scott, man. According to Will Salmon of The Athletic, the Mets have met with Tanner Scott. Hey, we all know the deal with Tanner Scott. This guy's disgusting. The walks were a little high at the beginning of the year this year. He got that under control as the season went on. But Tanner Scott, this guy is a swing and miss guy. Did I also I messed up the date. Dag nabbit, I messed up the date. I knew I forgot something. Let me fix that. Let me fix the date. I hate when I do that, man. Anyway, Tanner Scott, yeah, this guy is going to be a great addition for any bullpen out there. Absolutely nasty stuff from the left side. Could you imagine a back end of the bullpen with Edwin Diaz and Tanner Scott? I mean, good grief. I mean, man, oh man, what a combo that would be. Mets fans, if you end up getting Tanner Scott, that is going to be absolutely amazing for you. Now, there's a lot of teams in on Tanner Scott at this point. I'm sure there's been some other teams that have had some meetings with him that have not been reported. Jim Bowden said in his predictions article that the Red Sox are a clear front runner for him. I don't know. I take what Jim Bowden says with a grain of salt. I don't know, man. I see. And Philly sports fan, you're saying here they have a closer. Well, Tanner Scott, he doesn't need to be the closer. He could be just another high leverage guy. He's been in setup roles before. Having Tanner Scott at the back end of your bullpen, I mean, that could be crazy. Now, when it comes to the Mets, right, obviously, they've made a lot of moves, right? You still got to figure out what's going on with Pete Alonso. We'll talk about him in just a second. But, I mean, obviously, adding Juan Soto, my goodness, still breaks my heart a little bit that the Red Sox couldn't figure it out. But it is what it is. This would be a great addition for the Mets, man. If you could really bolster up, they could use another lefty in this bullpen. They need a high leverage lefty in this bullpen. That would be fantastic if you could add him. Now, when it comes to Pete Alonso, now we got a couple other teams in the mix. Listen, I know the Interest Kings, ladies and gentlemen, are once again showing some interest. The Blue Jays and the Red Sox are also showing interest in Pete Alonso. And, getting back to Tristan Casas here, this kind of made, it ties in. It ties into it. You know what I mean? Unless you're looking at Pete as maybe, do the Red Sox, I don't know. I don't see them moving Yoshida. I don't see them DFAing him either. I find it interesting that the Red Sox are looking at Alonso. If you end up moving Casas, but then again, it's like, what do you do with Rafi at that point? To me, I don't see Pete Alonso coming to the Red Sox. I think you would need to move Casas and Yoshida in that scenario. Because, if you sign Alonso, if you sign Casas and you bring in Alonso, well, then you're kind of in the same boat as you were prior, except you just have a right-handed bat, which the Red Sox do need. But unless they bring in Arenado, or sorry, they don't bring in Arenado, right? I'm thinking of it that way too. If they don't bring in Arenado and they trade Casas to bring in some other pieces and then they sign Pete Alonso, I could see that. I think in the end, though, I guess it depends, what kind of, if the Red Sox, if they could figure out a way to do a 1-year deal or whatever, 3-year deal with an opt-out after 1 year, I could maybe see the Red Sox doing something like that, but the Blue Jays are looking for anyone at this point. The Blue Jays are interesting with me, because, when you look at the current roster, obviously you have Vlad. You have Vlad there. Will Wagner, Wagner can play, you can move him to third base, whatever. And then, Vlad, Pete, they could share first base and DH. So, that'd be a bit of an easier fit. The Red Sox are interesting. Very interesting. Again, I think it ties in to all the Casas stuff, But I think for the Mets, man, for me personally, when it comes to Pete, listen, I said this coming into the offseason. And Mets fans, a lot of you didn't want to listen to me. I was saying, David Stearns, I wonder how far he's going to go for Pete, who has seen his numbers regress a little bit over the last few years. He's a DH risk. Sure, I know, there's people out there that say, oh, he can scoop it better than any of them out there. But when it comes to consistency, Alonso, the numbers don't look great with him. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up moving on. Like I said, coming into the offseason, I wouldn't be surprised if David Stearns didn't want to go the extra mile for him. Especially if if Pete's looking for a big deal. And I guess the report out there is that Scott Boras is looking for a Prince Fielder kind of a deal. Like what was it? Like a 9-year deal? Are you kidding me? Like, you're out of your freaking mind, man. Like, sorry, but I think Scott Boras is good for the guys. When, I don't know, man. I think sometimes he gets a little, you saw it last year. I think there's definitely, like Juan Soto, perfect for Scott Boras, right? Even, Blake Snell this year. That was, because the projections are there. But when it comes to guys that have been on the downswing, I think Boras ends up just screwing these guys, right? And I think it's kind of happening here with Pete Alonso a little bit. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. But I wonder if Alonso is going to end up doing what Chapman did, Bellinger did last offseason, where he ends up taking, a short-term deal with an opt-out. We'll see. But there's, when it comes to Alonso, I would like to say him and the Mets end up figuring it out. He's the homegrown guy, fan favorite, gives you power behind Soto. He is, I just wonder if it's a staring contest at this point and they're just waiting to see which one of them is going to blink first. The only way I could see Alonso leaving is, again, if a team just comes out of the blue, comes out of nowhere, and says, hey, listen, we'll do this for you. What do you think? Here's a nice spicy offer for you. Like a team like the Angels, right? Just throwing some dumb money at them. Teams maybe throwing a high AAV for a 1-year opt-out deal. Something like that, right? I wonder, the more time that passes, I just wonder if he ends up going back. Could it be the same thing with Bellinger, right? Bellinger, he ended up going back to the Cubs. Could he just do this? Same, could he just do that? Same thing, right? The opt-out or whatever. And then Bellinger opted back in. We'll see. But it is interesting the longer he stays out there. I wonder if a team ends up emerging. But again, I just wonder, some of these other teams, they need to kind of figure out other things to make it happen. I would love the Giants. I think the Giants make a lot of sense for Pete Alonso. I don't know, man. I just think that power bat in the middle of the order, I think it makes a lot of sense. I would love for the Giants to make an upgrade at first base. Lamont, I like Lamont Wade, but Pete Alonso, he's going to give you that power. Will his power probably drop a little bit at Oracle? Yeah, probably. But still, he's going to be a nice beefy bat in the middle of the order. Let's talk about the Yankees. Let's talk about the Yankees here. Moving on to the other side of New York. And the Yankees, they're looking to try and move Marcus Stroman. And we did talk about this a little bit earlier when we were talking about Nolan Arenado and the Cardinals. Well, the Yankees, they tried offering him up for the Cardinals. The St. Louis, they said, nah, we don't want that. We're trying to cut payroll. But Bob Nightingale, he reported today that the Yankees are still trying to move Marcus Stroman. Now, when it comes to Stroman and his value, right? So if I'm looking here at the rest of his contract, he has one more year. He has the vesting option. He has one more year guaranteed, but then if he ends up pitching 140 innings this year, that'll vest. So you have to assume he's got 2 more years left on the deal. So when it comes to Stroman, making a little under $20 million, right? He's a pretty underwater contract at this point. When it comes to Stroman and the numbers this past year, kind of whatever. He's really just a depth starter at this point. ERA in the low 3s, but the FIP was higher at 4.62. I think with Stroman, man, he's a ground ball kind of a guy. I think you need to put him somewhere. If he ends up a team that I think could end up emerging as a team with a good infield defense. If I'm looking at it, maybe the Tigers. I know that's not a great option. I think they need to go after a very solid 2. I would love either Flaherty or Nick Pivetta for the Tigers. But could Stroman end up being a guy where, I don't know. I guess it depends on what Flaherty and Pivetta end up. Would you rather just do Flaherty for 3 years or Pivetta for 3 years than Stroman for 2? I wonder. So if not the Tigers, maybe a team like the Guardians, they got some good infield defense there. They brought in a couple of guys, they brought in some guys, Luis Ortiz, obviously, in the Pirates trade, Tristan McKenzie. He's been up and down at the major league level, hasn't fully figured it out from a consistency point of view. He did pitch pretty well not too long ago, but he's had some injuries. He's gotten knocked around a lot since then. Tristan McKenzie, I feel like they're still obviously willing to give him a chance, but I don't know. Maybe Stroman could end up being something there. Maybe. I don't know, man. I just think the Yankees are going to have a hard time moving Marcus Stroman at this point. It doesn't hurt to have Stroman as a depth guy, Now, the Yankees, in other news, they are looking for something for the infield. Remember, Gavin Lux ended up going to the Reds. And I actually apologize about that. When I talked about that last night, I only talked about it from the Reds' point of view. I was so intrigued about the Reds part of it that I completely left out the Dodgers part of it, right? The Dodgers ended up getting a prospect in Mike Soroka, and they got a draft pick compensation. They got a compensatory draft pick out of it. I think that was great for the Dodgers. You already got Hai-Sung Kim. You get a draft pick, and you get someone like Mike Soroka. There could be some upside there. A guy that's very athletic, has upside with the bat. I believe he struggled this past year, but Mike Soroka was a guy not too long ago, a pretty high value, draft prospect. So I mean, the Dodgers, I think, for Gavin Lux, you already had Hai-Sung Kim. What a great move for the Dodgers, in my opinion. So I apologize for missing that yesterday. I was just so intrigued. I see you in the chat, Jens. Lux to the Reds makes no sense. That's why I was so focused on the Reds part of it. We'll see. I do think the Reds are going to end up making more moves. I feel like someone like Noelvi Marte could end up being a guy that gets moved at this point. So we'll see. But when it comes to some other areas here, now, Luis Ariz, we talked about him last night, and I guess he's still on their radar. I still don't see the idea. I don't know. I don't see it unless Jazz moves over to third. But I feel like, Brian Cashman, he's talked about Jazz being at second base. I think he's a better fit there because he has the range. I don't know, man. I just think Luis Ariz, at that point, he's your second baseman, right? Because Paul Goldschmidt, Ben Rice, they're going to be taking the majority at first base. I don't think you're going to platoon Paul Goldschmidt and Luis Arraez. So I think second base is probably where you would put him. Jim is here. Jim. Lux moves pieces around. They get steered to a corner outfield spot. It tracks. Yeah. Lux, he fits at third base. Yeah. It seemed weird at first when that move went down. I was like, what? They already have so many guys. They have so many young guys there. Why are they bringing in Gavin Lux? But then it's like, oh, well, a lot of those guys have versatility. So it ends up working out. I just thought it was so interesting at first. I was like, what? It was more of the reaction, but then when I thought about it, I was like, yeah. Jim, how we doing, my friend? How we doing? Welcome to the show. What was I talking about again? My potato brain just went off the rails right there. Luis Arraez. Yeah, I don't know. I guess Jazz play third. Arraez play second. Can Arraez play third? Can that has he? I don't think he. I don't know. I don't see that. I don't know. We'll see. But the Brendan Rodgers one, I could maybe see that. Right. A guy that hasn't fully been able to figure it out. He's been all right. Remember, he was a high draft pick. What was it? 2015, 2016. And he did some okay things, but never fully got it going there. When it comes to Brendan Rodgers, I mean, let's pull up the numbers here. Again, okay. 0.8 on the F4. Had the 407 slugging, but that was half a season at Coors. Right-handed bat. I'm not sure how much the power would play there. I mean, he's not really much of a power guy. I think more of a guy that he's more of the hit tool. I mean, he did have some raw power when he, was a prospect, but you just haven't really seen a lot of it, right? He's had 15 home runs as his career high, and that was at Coors. So, I don't know, maybe the Yankees, they see something there, but a guy that can move around in the infield, maybe he could play some third, We'll see. But the Yankees, it seems like they're going to add an infielder. Seems like it. I don't know. Arenado, circle back, maybe? I don't know. We got some other news here. Let's kind of dive in. Let's wrap up because I got to get over to Fenway Faithful here in just a minute. And we got some other news. Like I said, right, the Braves looking for some outfield help. I don't know. It seems like they got the platoon going out in left field. You got Jared Kelenic, Brian De La Cruz. I don't know. Ronald Acuna Jr. is going to be coming back. You got Michael Harris. So, yeah, maybe, I don't know. Maybe. Starting pitching, I've already mentioned it a few times. Listen, I think Flaherty would be great, but I don't know if they're going to spend the money. Anthopoulos, he doesn't come off to me as a guy that, goes crazy for a guy like Flaherty. I really could see maybe someone like Scherzer, just like a cheap deal. Pivetta, I just don't think he's going to want to give up the draft pick at this point. If I'm looking at, actually, let me go to the starting pitchers here on the free agent tracker. Let's see. Maybe I wonder if someone like Andrew Heaney could make some sense. Maybe even like a Kyle Gibson, like a veteran guy, like a cheap 1-year deal. Somebody can give you some innings. You don't mind giving him the ball in the postseason because he's a veteran guy. Maybe Lance Lynn. If you turn to one of those veteran guys, possibly. Maybe even like Jose Quintana. Maybe. Guys that don't have the draft pick attached to them. I could see that. And then, when it comes to the bullpen, yeah, I mean, they have been attached to Tanner Scott. But again, are they going to spend that money? I don't know. The Mariners, they're still looking for a deal for Luis Castillo, according to The Athletic. Yeah, I think it could still happen. The problem with Luis Castillo is you are seeing the numbers slightly regress, and he's owed a lot of money. I think if the Mariners eat some of that deal, I really think the Tigers would be a great landing spot if they get Bregman, and then you could send back Chase Young. I love that. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe people think that's just a terrible idea. I just love the idea for both sides, right? If you bring in Bregman. If you bring in Bregman, well, then Young, you could either choose to keep him, stashed away and he can develop a little bit more down in the minor leagues. Or, you could use him as a trade piece, bring in someone like Castillo. I think that could be a pretty decent 1-2 with Skubal and Castillo. Alex Verdugo. Oh, I forgot to mention this with the Mets. We were talking about the Mets earlier. Alex Verdugo could be a New York Met, ladies and gentlemen. I forgot to mention this. The Pirates are also indeed are indeed hot after Alex Verdugo, and a team to watch there. Robert Murray said that. Other teams like the Mets, and what do you know? The Blue Jays are involved. Jim, are you still here? Why are the Blue? Can they? Don't tell me the Blue Jays are going to get turned down by Alex Verdugo. Please don't tell me that's going to happen. Is Verdugo going to shoot them down too? Oh, my goodness. I can see the fit, though. I can see the fit. The Mets, I don't know, right? Jesse Winker, do they just go back to him? I don't know. But the Pirates, coming into the offseason, I thought a small market team for Verdugo could make some sense. Maybe the A's. The Pirates, I think, could make some sense. We'll see. But that's that. I think that's all we got. That's all we got here for tonight. Sorry, the Blue Jays. Yes, you got to talk about the Blue Jays with Carlos Estevez. They were listed as another team. I did see, I believe, Hector Gomez put something out there today about Carlos Estevez, saying I don't know the right wording, but seemed like they had some strong interest. They need some bullpen help. They need bullpen help. If the Blue Jays do anything, add something for the bullpen and extend Vlad. First, extend Vlad. And then, actually, no, don't do that, because we're going to go talk about that over on Fenway Faithful. But the Blue Jays, Estevez, I think it makes some sense. We'll see. The Rays, they extended Drew Rasmussen 2 years, $8.5 million. Remember, he missed this past year, or he missed 2022 and 2023, or 28 starts in 2022, and he made a few in 23 before undergoing the internal brace surgery. Not Tommy John, but the internal brace. So looks like he's going to be good to go. For the Rays, nice cheap deal. Rasmussen, he's given good results before. I think that makes sense. We already talked about the Yankees. Mets, looking at Tanner Scott. Don't forget, AJ Minter is out there as well. I wonder if, the Red Sox have been connected with Tanner Scott. I think AJ Minter could be more of a realistic option for the Red Sox. He's cheaper. My goodness. Anyway, everyone, I'm out of here. We're going to wrap this up. I'm going to head on over to Fenway Faithful. Go on over there if you want to hear more about the Red Sox. We're talking Vlad Jr. We're talking some good stuff. Over there. We're going to be talking more about Arenado. I'm going to give my thoughts on that. I'll dive more into the Pete Alonso connections for over there. But everyone, go have yourself a good rest of your night. Again, if you want to come over and listen to some Red Sox news, I'll see you over there. If not, go have yourself a great rest of your night, everybody. Go check out my video that I posted earlier talking about Jim Bowden's predictions. I gave my thoughts on that. Just kind of a quick video I threw together today. We always got to react to Jim Bowden. So, everyone, thank you for coming out tonight. If you can on the way out, hit that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new. We're trying to get to 50K by opening day. We're almost at 47K. We're getting close. Everyone, go have yourself a good rest of your night. And if you head on over to Fenway Faithful, I'll see you there. And I'll talk to you next time, everybody.